Hi, George here, and today I want to talk about white balance. I'll show you how to do a white balance if it's required. I'll show you why you may not want to do a white balance and some problems that may come up if you do a white balance when you shouldn't do a white balance. I'll be using these three pictures here as examples, and they're all the wedding dresses, so these are all white wedding dresses, so technically they should all be white in here. And as we see over here, this one's pretty blue, this one's kind of a greenish coloration, this one is very white, including the sky is also very white. And of these three, to my eye, I think that the left-hand picture over here is the one that is the best. This has a nice white balance. It looks like that is a correct white in here. Now, when you're doing white balance, the best tool you have for judging your white balance is going to be your eye. That's really the best tool available. I wouldn't recommend going by any formula to use with any particular tool. You try to match numbers and find the exact match that way, or even to use tools to give you the correct white balance for an image. What the white balance tool does, and you can see it up here, that's the enhance, come down to adjust color and remove color cast. This is your white balance tool right here. What it does is exactly that. It just removes the color cast. So if something is white, it would remove any color from that area, giving you a pure white. And that's the problem. And that's that most whites in an image aren't actually white. They look white to our eye, and that's what you want, but you don't want them actually white. And a good example is this image here, left-hand side. Looks like the brightest part of this image is right in here. So I'll zoom in on this, and we have a nice white right in here. Let's go to the eyedropper tool up here, and I have my color picker set at 3x3, so I'm getting an average. The reason I'm doing that is I don't want to be clicking on just an individual pixel. I can show you that if I zoom in real far here. There are a lot of different pixels in here, as you can see. Some white, some dark, some pretty white, some not so white. And if I did just one pixel, I could be getting the wrong coloration. So by doing an average, I can minimize that potential problem with those pixels. So click into this area right in here, and that's our brightest area. Let's now open up a new file, File, New, blank file. I'll just set this at the default Photoshop Elements size. And I'll make it a bit smaller. It's kind of large on the screen here. That's pretty good like that. Let's come in and choose an area right in here in the paint bucket, and I'll fill that. And then Control D to deselect. And that's the brightest part of the white over here in this image. It looks white in the image, but it's actually kind of a light blue. And if you go back over here to our image, that's correct because we have all this blue in the image. We have a blue sky up here. The clouds are even pretty blue. There's this blue ocean down there. So there's a lot of blue light in this image, and your whites are going to be tinted blue because of all of the blue in the image. That's what it should be. This should not be a pure white. It should be kind of a bluish white, and that's what we're seeing right here. If I go back here to the color picker, you'll see we are very close up here. The pure white is your upper left-hand corner. This is very close to that. Anything up in this range, I would say, is correct. Notice that it's in the blue range. Everything else here is very, very blue. So that's a good color balance for this image, but it's not a pure white. So I wouldn't try to remove a color cast in here to get rid of the bluish in that white. I think this is correct. Now again, it's my eye that's telling me that. It isn't the tool. Photoshop Elements would tell me that that's not white, that that's incorrect, but it actually is correct because it's correct to my eye. And again, your eye is your best tool for making these kinds of color adjustments. And in here, looks like right up in here is the brightest part of this image. I'll just zoom in on that. Do the exact same thing. I'll grab the eyedropper tool. I'll click into here. It's right in here someplace. Looks like that's a good white for that. Let's go back over to our color picker and notice that we're almost right up in that corner. Very, very close to that corner. I could probably find a pure white if I look around just a little bit. Like right there maybe. Almost pure white. Now that is really too white for this image. And let me show you why. Just choose OK on this, and I'll do the same thing over here. I'll make a rectangle of that. And let's fill that. There we go, Control D to deselect. And you almost can't see that. It's very slightly yellow, but it's really hard to see. It's practically pure white right in there. And again, I could find a pure white here if I was looking around a little bit. So what that tells me is that this image here has been white balanced. And it's also been increased in contrast, kind of burning out in the sky. There's too much white on her face in here, so we've lost a lot of detail because of this. If we look at the image, and if I scroll in down here, this real strong orange down there. It's real strong oranges along the left-hand side of his pants over in here. If you look over this way, real strong oranges right down here. And if we examine the shadows, here's this pole here, and the shadow is straight across from that, comes all the way over to here. So the sun is very low on the horizon, and we have some real bright sides on these posts. Again, so the sun is very low off to the left-hand side, and we should be seeing a lot of warmth in here from that sunset, from the sunset colors. They've white balanced this, and they've also lightened it up. So it's gone too contrasty and it's too white for the scene. And I think we lose some of the drama of this. If this was left alone, if this was not white balanced, we'd have a lot more drama. It would be darker in here and be a lot more orange in the dress. And I think it'd be a much better photograph. So this has been white balanced and adjusted, and they've taken it far too far. I probably would not have white balanced this particular image. Okay, let's go over here, take a look at this one. Now, same thing, we have a white wedding dress in here, but this is obviously pushed over towards the greens. Let's see how much this is. I'll grab the eyedropper tool and we'll click into our white area right down here. And it looks like it's white in the image, looks very bright in the image. But if we take a look at the color now, that's really very green. It's almost a pea soup green. It's very, very dark, quite a ways away from the upper left-hand corner here. So this one definitely has a tint happening on it. And if I was checking something, that's the first thing I would try. I would click onto a white and see how far away I am from that corner. If it's too far, then it's got a tint. This is also an unnatural color in here. You should have either a warm yellow or orange or a cool blue. You'll have one of the two in almost all instances, unless you're indoors under old fluorescent lights. In that case, you could get this kind of coloration, but this is outdoors, so that's not the case. Let's go ahead, we'll add that one into our image over here. And I'll make another color square right here. Let's fill this one. There we go, Control D. And notice how much darker this one is. This is actually taken right from inside here. It looks white here because, of course, the image is telling our minds that this is a white dress, but in actuality, that's very dark. So this would need a lot of color adjustment. And this image is a good use of trying to do a white balance, but that would also take it too far potentially. Let's go ahead, we'll take a look at that. Let's click on this image. Let's make a duplicate of our background layer here. Right-click on background, duplicate layer. Choose OK. Let's just get this out of the way and that. And this one as well. Get all those out of our vision here. Let's hide that. That's just a safety, just in case things get messed up. When you're making a color cast adjustment, it's right on that layer. So always a good idea to work on a backup. Go up to Enhance, come down to Adjust Color, and remove Color Cast. And then click into what should be a white. And I think right in here should be white. That appears to be the brightest spot in this image. Click on that. And it's now no longer green. It's already removed that quite a bit. Choose OK. Let's now check this. Eyedropper, we'll click into here. And notice, even with this, we're still getting a pretty dark image. So the image values have to be adjusted. But notice how this is on the left-hand side. Your left-hand side here is pure grays. White at top, black at bottom, and pure gray. So it's removed all the color from that image based upon this one spot and has adjusted the colors accordingly. Now what that does, of course, it pushes things away from what they should be. So we need to now decide what the correct coloration is for this image. If we look at our shadows, I don't see any shadows really coming off of these posts in here. The shadow on the car is straight beneath the car. I don't see any shadowing over here. So this is noontime. And it's kind of low contrast. We could have a little bit of an overcast in here. I'm seeing a little bit of a sparkle in her eyes and up on her teeth right here. I think that's probably because we have a bounce card over here, or they're using a fill flash to fill in some of the shadows. So those are not from a sun, that's from something else. They're kind of low on her eye in here. So there's a light over here, left-hand side, that's being bounced into her to fill in some of the shadows. You actually can see it right here, the shadow on her cheek right there, and the shadowing in here from her hair. That's from the left-hand side. So that's light that's added in by the photographer. And it could also be pushing our colors in the wrong direction. Now, how do we take care of that? We decide what kind of lighting this should have. Let's say I think it should be a warm day, nice bright sun. If the sun's right overhead, we're going to be having light from the sun, which is very, very warm. Sun's bright yellow, of course. We'll also be having some lighting from the sky, from the overall sky, and that's going to be cool. The sky is blue. So what you would have is cooler colors in the shadows and warmer colors in the highlight areas. I care about the highlights for this picture, so let's go up here to Layer, come down to Adjustment Layer, and Photo Filter, choose OK, and this will allow us to add a color tone of our own choosing in here. You can choose any color that you want or use one of these standard filters. Now, these are color adjustment filters basically designed for adjusting for camera film back on film camera days. They used to make film for indoors and for outdoors, or they call it daylight and indoors. Daylight compensates for all the blues, and indoor compensates for all the warm colors, light bulbs. Since most old bulbs are very warm, you could use these to try to kind of balance that back out again, especially if you're using the wrong film in the wrong location, using daylight film inside or indoor film outside. You try to compensate for that. But we can use any color down here. Say I wanted to bring this a bit more yellow, a bit brighter, add in some yellow. If I want a bit less green on that, I'll bring it down just a little bit, a little warmer yellow like that. Bring my density down just a touch. So here's nothing, and then just a little bit more warmth on that. And I can bring back in some of the yellow that we should be having because the sun is bright sun. Now, if this were an overcast day, I'd use a different filter. I come in here, I want to have something that's more into the blues. Let's try as a standard cooling filter like that. And I can then just bring in just a little bit of cooling. So there's a bit more blue into the whites, and that'd be correct for an overcast day. Using the white balance to get you to the pure white is correct as far as it goes. That kind of fixes your overall tint. But you then should come back in and push it a little bit in the right direction for the time of day and for the lighting conditions, because white is not going to be a pure white in any realistic picture. It's going to be off by something. Now, we've taken it this far. It's still not quite right because we've lost a lot of contrast. So I'm guessing that it's kind of an overcast day. It's not real bright sun. I'm not seeing real sharp shadows in here. So for that, I want to bring in a bit more contrast. Go up here to Layer, come down to New Adjustment Layer and Levels. And your contrast is your outer ends here. This is your white, this is your blacks. Your midtones are right here. So I'll bring in a little bit more black. Just going to richen that up. So these shadows are darker, which you would get in a brighter situation. And we've lost a lot of light. That happens in an overcast day. You lose a lot of your bright whites. You can see that's happening over here. So this is definitely an overcast day. So I'll pull the whites up. And now we're getting it to look much more like it's a daylight scene and with a nice white balance. And the white even looks whiter now because we've increased the white point here. We've added some white into the white, basically lightening that up. And that gives us a much better picture. But again, as you notice, I'm not going for a perfect white. We put a lot of blue into this image because there should be some color cast in here from something. It's either going to be warm or it's going to be cool, depending upon how you're judging the actual light for the day. So the real trick when you're doing any of these kind of adjustments isn't to try to find the right numbers to make a match. It's not trying to balance colors out based upon any kind of a formula. It really is trying to understand the scene, understand the lighting that's going on in the scene, and then adjust your scene according to that understanding. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you want to learn a lot more about how to use Photoshop Elements, especially if you're a beginner, you're brand new to Photoshop Elements, the best way to learn this program is with my complete training course for Photoshop Elements, and I'll put a link for that at the top of the description. And while you're here, before you leave this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. That does help my videos a lot. And if you don't want to miss any videos in the future, also make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit that bell icon so you won't miss any of those videos, and I'll see you next time.